The cycle of pain ends with you. There comes a moment, quiet, heavy, not in drama, but in undeniable clarity. A moment when you realize, I can't carry this anymore. The weight of the memory, the betrayal no one saw, the invisible wound that never quite closes, and life keeps moving. You smile, you function, you even laugh. But inside, something is still bleeding. And maybe you've asked yourself, why does it still hurt? Why am I still circling the same old wound again and again, like a ritual I never chose? The answer? Because you're feeding it not with intent, but with resistance, with silence, with stories never questioned. But what if healing wasn't about fixing everything? What if it was about releasing what was never yours to carry? The first truth: what you resist persists. Pain isn't strong, it's sticky. It clings not because it wants to, but because you do. You push it away, but secretly revisit it. You pretend you've moved on, but keep replaying the scene in your head. It's not the event that haunts you. It's the reaction you've rehearsed so many times it became part of your identity. The Stoics understood this. Marcus Aurelius said, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke." In other words, pain isn't eternal, unless you keep it alive. You're not being punished, you're being invited and to finally let go. Surrender is not weakness. It's intelligence we've been taught to fight, to battle pain, to overcome. But the wisest act isn't always domination. It's surrender, not giving up, but giving back what was never yours to carry. Letting the wave rise, feel it, breathe through it, and then let it pass. You don't heal by running. You heal by stopping. Not forever, just long enough to feel what you've been avoiding. And once you feel it, fully, the cycle begins to break. You don't have to perform your pain to prove it was real. You're allowed to let go, without explanation, without the world validating it, without closure, without their apology. Your healing doesn't require a stage. It requires silence. Letting go doesn't erase your story. It erases its grip on your nervous system, because the pain isn't the enemy. The armor around it is, and sometimes the bravest thing you can do is soften. Ask yourself, what am I still resisting? What pain are you secretly protecting? Not because you love it, but because it makes you feel in control. What would happen if you stopped resisting? If you let the grief rise? If you let the story end? If you stopped being the victim and started being the witness? That's where it begins. Not in strength, not in certainty, but in surrender. You are not your sadness. You are not your grief. You are not the shame you picked up from someone else's inability to love you. What you feel is real, but it is not you. It is weather, and you are the sky. It will pass, not by force, but by your willingness to let it move through without becoming it. The Stoics had no illusion of a painless life. They knew suffering was part of the human path, but they also knew suffering didn't have to be your identity. You can witness your emotions without obeying them. You can hold your pain without being held hostage by it. And that shift is where freedom begins. Emotional pain is a signal, not a sentence. Pain is information. It tells you where you're raw, where you've neglected your own voice, where you've expected someone else to carry what was yours to hold. But it's not a verdict, it's a whisper. And when you stop running from it, it becomes your teacher. Every ache points inward, not to punish, but to guide. And when you're brave enough to ask, what is this teaching me? You break the cycle. Because pain unexamined becomes repetition, but pain understood becomes wisdom. You've been here before, and you survived. This isn't the first time your heart cracked. It won't be the last, but look at you, still breathing, still standing, still capable of joy, even when you've forgotten how to feel it. The fact that you're listening to this now means some part of you still believes. Not in a perfect ending, but in a better way to begin again. The Stoics taught that the obstacle becomes the way. That adversity isn't your enemy. It's your alchemist. You've suffered. But now you have a choice. Keep recycling that suffering, or start transmuting it. You don't heal through thinking. You heal through presence. You can't outthink your grief. You can't logic your way out of heartbreak. You can't talk your nervous system out of a memory it still feels. Healing doesn't happen in the mind alone. It happens in the body, in the breath, in the pause, in the way you slowly return to this moment when without judgment. That's what presence is, not fixing. Just being with what is without trying to escape it. And in that sacred pause, you start to trust life again. Release is not forgetting, it's remembering differently. You don't have to forget what happened. You don't have to minimize the pain. You only have to change your relationship to it, to see that memory not as a wound, but as a chapter. Not as your identity, but as a part of your becoming. The Stoics practiced negative visualization, imagining loss, betrayal, even death, so they could return to the present with reverence. What hurt you then helped you now, not because it was good, but because you made it meaningful. And in that meaning, you rise. Your peace is not dependent on closure. You may never get the apology. They may never change. You may never understand why, but none of that is required for peace. Closure is not a door someone else locks. It's a key you hold. It's the quiet decision to stop checking the past for validation. It's the daily practice of releasing what you wanted so you can live in what is. And once you stop needing peace from them, you begin to build it from within. You don't have to be fully healed to live. Fully. Healing is not a finish line. It's not a state you finally arrive at. It's a rhythm. Some days you'll feel light. Some days you'll ache again. Some days you'll surprise yourself with how strong you've become. Don't wait for perfect peace to start showing up for your life. Start now, with what you have, with what you feel, with your beautiful, unfinished self. The Stoics didn't seek perfection. They sought alignment. And alignment begins not in being whole, but in being honest. Let the pain refine, you not define you. You are not broken. You are being sculpted. Life has carved you, tested you, pressed against every soft edge you've tried to hide. But you're still here, still choosing breath, still leaning toward meaning. And that choice, to stay soft in a hard world, to stay open in a world that wounds, that is the rarest form of strength. So don't wish the pain away. Wish for the courage to let it shape you. Because the one who has suffered deeply and still chooses gentleness, they are untouchable. You are allowed to outgrow the story of suffering. The version of you that was hurt served a purpose. They got you here. They endured. They carried the weight. But you're not meant to live there forever. You are allowed to change, to move forward, to be different than your history. The past is not a prison. It's a platform. Step off it, not with denial, but with devotion to the life still waiting for you. That step, that's what breaks the cycle. This is the moment. It begins, not tomorrow, not when it's all resolved. Now, with breath, with presence, with willingness. You are not starting over. You are starting deeper. You've done the suffering. Now comes the choosing, and choice, repeated, becomes freedom. You are not meant to stay in pain. Pain is not your home. It's a season, a passage, a terrain you cross, but not a place you live. But if you're not careful, you start building furniture there. You decorate it with stories. You hang regret like paintings. You convince yourself this is who you are now, the one who hurts. But hear this clearly. You are not the wound. You are the witness, the builder, the one who decides what you carry forward. And what ends here? Pain is real, but so is the decision to stop recycling. Emotional pain is sticky. It disguises itself as truth, as identity, as caution, but mostly, it's habit. It's a well-rehearsed pattern of thought you've mistaken for reality. The Stoics knew this. Epictetus said, "We suffer not from the events in our lives, but from our judgment about them." Translation: your story is optional. The facts may stay, but the meaning you assign to them is entirely yours. And once you see that, you can begin to choose again. Not to forget, but to reframe. You don't heal by blaming. You heal by owning, yes, they hurt you. Yes, it was unfair. Yes, they should have known better, but blame is not a cure, it's a leash. It tethers you to the moment of betrayal and makes your peace dependent on their remorse. And what if they never apologize? What if they never get it? Will you stay stuck forever? Silently, strong people don't wait. They reclaim. They stop saying, "Look what they did to me," and start asking, "What am I still doing to myself with this?" That's where power returns, not when they're sorry, but when you're done. You can't think your way out of feeling. You've tried, haven't you? To intellectualize the pain, to explain it, to talk over it with logic and reason. But emotions don't obey intellect. They live in the body, in the breath, in the things you don't say out loud. And the only way out is through the discomfort, through the shaking, through the vulnerability of saying, I still carry this, and not judging yourself for it. The Stoic doesn't run from emotion. He masters his relationship to it, not by suppression, but by space. Space to feel, to witness, to let go. Let go of the narrative that you are damaged, you are not broken, you are becoming. That pain didn't destroy you, it refined you. It revealed what needed healing. It stripped away the lies you were told and started telling yourself. You are not your worst moment. You are not the version of you that made a mistake in survival. You are who decides what happens next. That's Stoicism, not becoming perfect, becoming sovereign. Some pain doesn't need healing, it needs honoring. Not all wounds are meant to be erased. Some are meant to be seen, held, witnessed, like sacred tattoos on the soul. You don't always need to get over it. Sometimes you need to carry it with grace, not as a chain, but as a marker, a reminder of where you've been and how deeply you can feel and still survive. The Stoics didn't erase suffering. They honored it, transformed it, turned it into wisdom, into strength, into service, and so can you. The life you want begins the moment you stop letting the past control the script. Right now, you're writing a story with every thought, every belief, every reaction. And if you don't interrupt the old narrative, you'll keep playing the same role again and again. But what if today you wrote a different line? What if you became the one who forgives, the one who rises, the one who chooses peace, even when the pain still whispers? That line changes the entire arc, because the story isn't over. You're just finally taking the pen back. You're allowed to be a new person. Without explaining the old one, you don't have to explain your healing. You don't owe anyone a tour of your pain. You don't need permission to stop talking about the wound you've already made peace with. When the pain is integrated, you move differently, and people may not recognize you. Let them be confused. You're not here to maintain familiarity. You're here to become truth. And truth doesn't need backstory. It simply is. No one is coming to save you. But that's the best news of all, because you don't need a savior. You need a choice. A daily, breath-by-breath commitment to stop being at war with your own history. And that choice? It won't always feel good. It won't always feel clear. But if you keep making it, over time, it becomes who you are. Not reactive. Not bitter, not broken, but clear, open, capable of loving again and starting with yourself. You are not what happened. You are what you decide. Next, right now, in this breath, you are free. Free to soften, free to release, free to stop rehearsing the pain and start rehearsing peace. It won't be perfect, but it will be yours. And when you own that next choice, you end the cycle, not because the pain vanished, but because you finally did something different. And from that moment, everything changes. Sitting with the storm, there is a kind of pain that doesn't scream. It hums, low and constant. Not enough to break you, but enough to wear you down. It sits beneath the surface, shows up in small moments, avoided conversations, delayed decisions, unspoken grief. And when you finally sit with it, really sit, you realize this was never about them. It was about what you believed about yourself because of what happened. Avoidance is not peace. It's prolonged suffering. You think avoiding. The pain will protect you. That staying busy will save you. That moving on without processing it will make it go away. But the Stoics knew better. What you avoid today returns tomorrow. Louder. It becomes the mood you can't explain. The tension in your chest. The anger that flares without cause. The sadness you can't name. Avoidance doesn't erase pain, it delays it. And the longer you delay, the deeper it roots. The wound isn't the problem. The neglect is. Most emotional pain doesn't grow because of what happened. It grows because we never gave it attention. We buried it, labeled it weakness, told ourselves, I shouldn't feel this way. And in doing so, we abandoned ourselves. Healing begins when you return, not to the pain, but to the part of you that still holds it. You don't have to fix it. You just have to witness it. And witnessing is an act of profound courage. Stillness is where the answers are. You've searched books, you've talked it out, you've overthought it. You've outrun it with work, noise, and scrolling. But the pain didn't move, because it doesn't respond to stimulation. It responds to stillness. Sit, breathe, wait, let it rise. Let the memory come. Let the ache speak, in its own time, in its own way. And you'll hear it say, I just wanted to be seen, not judged, not analyzed, just seen. You are allowed to be sad without needing to justify it. You don't need a tragic event to validate your heaviness. You don't need others to understand it. You don't need to have a reason. Pain doesn't ask permission. It simply asks for presence. And in giving it that, without trying to change it, you free yourself. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is sit with your sadness without trying to escape it. You cannot heal if you continue to abandon yourself. In the process, every time you ignore the ache, you reinforce a story. What I feel doesn't matter. Every time you judge your own emotion, you deepen the shame. Something is wrong with me. But when you choose to stay, to be gentle, to be curious, to be unconditionally present with what hurts, that's when the healing begins. Not through force. Through companionship. You, with you. The past is over, but its energy lives in the body. The memory may be old, but your body doesn't know time. It only knows signals, imprints, echoes. The Stoics understood this intuitively. They may not have had the language of neuroscience, but they knew the power of returning to the now, because the body carries what the mind won't admit. So let your healing be physical. Walk, breathe, stretch, cry, shake, sing. Let your body complete the cycle. Because trauma doesn't just live in thought, it lives in muscle, in breath, in the tension you normalize, and you deserve to live unclenched. Pain left unfelt becomes personality. If you don't feel it, you become it. You start living from it, reacting from it, making choices from it, loving from it. protecting yourself against things that aren't even here anymore. You mistake defense for identity, but you are not your defense mechanisms. You are what exists beneath them. And returning to that self, even briefly, reminds you, this is not who I am. This is just who I became to survive, and now I choose to live. Stop running from the wave, let it wash through you. The emotion rises. You tense, you distract, you suppress. But what if you just let it in? Let it hit. Let it roll. Let it drench you and pass. The Stoics practiced voluntary discomfort to prepare their minds. This is your moment of voluntary vulnerability, not to suffer, but to liberate. Because every wave that moves through you takes a little more of the pain with it until one day you notice the water has gone quiet. This is the inner work. No one applauds. No one sees it. No one celebrates it. No one claps when you choose to sit with your sadness instead of running from it. But it's the bravest thing you'll ever do, and it will change you, not instantly, but irrevocably, because the person who no longer fears their own storm becomes the eye of it. And from that center, you don't just heal, you lead. The alchemy of emotional pain, you've sat with the storm. You didn't run, you didn't numb, you didn't lie to yourself. And now, something begins to shift. The pain, it's still there, but it feels different, less sharp, less personal. Because for the first time, you're not just surviving it, you're transmuting it, turning sorrow into strength, shame into understanding, fear into focus. This is not magic, it's alchemy, and the Stoics were masters of it. The obstacle is not just the way, and it creates the way. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This isn't a cute quote, it's a blueprint. The pain you're facing, the betrayal, the abandonment, the silence, it's not blocking your growth. It is your growth. It's the forge, the mirror, the classroom, but only if you let it teach you, not define you. Because every scar has two choices, be a wall or a window. What hurt you can either hold you back or help you. Lead. You don't have to wait until the pain is gone to do something meaningful with it. You just have to stop letting it lead the conversation. Silently strong people don't deny their wounds. They walk with them, not to show them off, not to become martyrs, but to understand others more deeply. Because pain, when processed, becomes a bridge between you and someone else who thought they were alone. That's not weakness, that's leadership. You become who you needed when you were hurting. Think back to the worst moments, to the person you wished had shown up, to the words you needed, to the presence you longed for. What if you could become that? Not just for others, but for yourself. Because no one is coming, and that's okay. Because you came, and you stayed, and in staying, you broke the chain. When you stop identifying with the pain, you start guiding it. You are not the emotion, you are the guide. The one who notices, welcomes, holds, and then decides where it goes next. This is internal leadership, not domination, but direction. You don't need to control every feeling. You just need to contain it long enough to choose a response that honors your higher self. And the more you do that, the less life feels random, and the more it feels aligned. Suffering is not noble. Transcendence is, you've been taught that pain gives you depth, that to suffer is to be soulful. But the Stoics challenge this. It's not the suffering that changes you, it's what you do with it. Anyone can hurt, few can grow from it. So don't worship your wounds, don't romanticize your ruin. Instead, ask, what is this pain calling me to become? That question turns victims into philosophers, wounds into wisdom, cycles into clarity. Stop repeating the same emotion. Elevated anger, recycled, becomes bitterness. Grief, unprocessed, becomes depression. Shame, left unchecked, becomes identity. But elevated, anger becomes boundaries. Grief becomes gratitude. Shame becomes humility. This is emotional maturity. The ability to take a low-frequency feeling and raise its vibration through choice, through meaning, and that meaning is how pain becomes purpose. The past doesn't change, but its purpose. You can't rewrite what happened. You can't undo the silence, the goodbye, the betrayal, but you can rewrite its role in your story. What once shattered you can now become the reason you're indestructible. Not because you ignored it, but because you integrated it. It's not behind you. It's beneath you, a foundation. Solid, sacred, built from truth. You're not getting over it. You're growing through it. Let that truth settle. You're not pretending it didn't matter. You're not forcing positivity. You're not rushing the lesson. You're simply choosing to evolve with it, to carry it differently, to speak from it, not about it, to stop needing others to validate it, because you now understand it yourself. And in that understanding, you've become something rare, not someone who healed, but someone who transcended. This is the turning point. You felt it, faced it, owned it, honored it. Now, you're becoming something else. You're not who you were when the pain first arrived. You are quieter now, wiser, more grounded, more patient. You don't need revenge. You don't need an apology. You don't need the past to vanish, because you've alchemized it, and the world will feel it, not because you said a word, but because your presence has changed. Becoming new without destroying who you were. You don't have to hate who you were to become someone new. You don't have to burn your past to rise from it. The person you were, who suffered, who broke, who lashed out, was not your enemy. They were a version of you doing the best they could with the tools they had. And now, you have better tools, clearer eyes, stronger boundaries. So don't reject who you were. Thank them. They survived. You are about to live. Rebirth doesn't always look like reinvention. Sometimes it's just remembering you were whole before the pain, before the breakup, before the betrayal, before the silence. You didn't lose yourself, you simply forgot. Pain doesn't destroy identity. It buries it under defense, fear, story, pride. So healing isn't about becoming something else, it's about uncovering what was never broken, peeling back the armor, softening the guard, letting the true self return, not louder, but truer. You're not starting over, you're starting wiser. When you change, you think you've lost time. You regret the detours, the wasted years, the wrong people. But what if nothing was wasted? What if everything before now was training? Training for this version of you, the one who doesn't run, doesn't shrink, doesn't react blindly. The Stoics didn't curse their misfortunes. They studied them, absorbed them, used them as fuel, and so do you. You can let go without losing. Love this one is hard. You can release someone without resenting them, without needing them to be wrong, without rewriting history. Because letting go isn't erasing love, it's releasing the need for it to continue. It's saying, I honor what we had. I release what no longer serves, and I walk forward without bitterness. That kind of release is spiritual maturity. The Stoics called it apatheia, not indifference but equanimity. Love without possession. Care without chaos. Release without revenge. There's no need to announce your growth. It shows you don't need to post your peace. You don't need to explain your healing. You don't need to convince anyone you've changed. Growth doesn't perform. It radiates. It shows up in the pause before you speak, in the boundary you hold, calmly, in the trigger you notice but no longer obey, and those around you will feel it. Not through your words, but your energy. You are allowed to redefine everything, the roles, the relationships, the goals, even the meaning of happiness. You are not bound by past definitions, not by who you thought you should be, not by what society taught you to chase. The Stoics didn't blindly accept values. They examined them. They asked, does this serve my nature? Does this create peace? If the answer was no, they let it go. So, ask yourself, what am I still chasing that no longer aligns with who I'm becoming? Let that question guide your next steps. Forgiveness doesn't mean you let them back in. It means you let yourself. Out forgiveness is not reconciliation. It's release. It's the quiet decision to stop using someone else's mistake as the reason you stay stuck. You're not excusing, you're reclaiming, and the one who reclaims their energy from blame, from shame, from resentment, reclaims their life. You don't need to hold the sword anymore. Let it drop. Let it rust. Walk away light. You will lose people, but you will find yourself as you rise. Some people won't recognize you. Your new boundaries will feel cold. Your stillness will confuse them. Your refusal to react will look like distance. Let them go. You are not becoming unreachable. You are becoming undisturbed, and the ones meant for you will meet you there, in that stillness, in that space, in that rare vibration of someone who has returned to themselves. Now you lead from experience, not just knowledge. There's a difference between knowing something in your mind and embodying it in your nervous system. And now, you embody it. The pain taught you. The stillness anchored you. The practice molded you. And now, when others are falling apart, you don't panic. You breathe. You stay. You hold space. Because you know what it's like to walk through fire and come out clean. You're not just healing. You're preparing to serve. What you've survived is now what you can speak from. Not as a preacher, not as a savior, but as a presence. Someone who holds wisdom, someone who radiates safety, someone who no longer reacts but responds from a deep, sacred place. And that kind of presence? It doesn't need titles. It doesn't need attention. It simply is. And the world desperately needs it. Walking through the world without picking up. Every wound, you've done the work. You've faced the pain. You've learned to breathe when it hurt most. And now, you step back into the world. But this time, different. You're not the same person who entered the storm. You're not made of glass anymore. You've traded reactivity for rhythm, neediness for knowing, fragility for focus. Now comes the true test. Can you carry this peace into noise? You don't need the world to be gentle. You need to be grounded. Life won't get easier. People won't get softer. But you can get steadier. You don't ask the weather to change. You wear the right armor. Not to harden, but to withstand. Not to shut down, but to stay open without being overwhelmed. The Stoics didn't hope for a peaceful world. They trained for a turbulent one. And now, so do you. You're not obligated to absorb the chaos around you. Just because someone's hurting doesn't mean you have to carry it. Just because they're loud doesn't mean you have to match it. Just because they demand energy doesn't mean you owe it. Your healing has made you porous to light, not to dysfunction. So choose wisely what enters, who enters, why. Your boundaries are no longer walls, they're filters. And those filters, they are sacred. You will be triggered again, but you won't be controlled. The memory will flash, the old wound will echo. Someone will say something, and your body will react. That's not regression, that's a reminder. You are still human, but now you know what to do with the heat. You don't explode, you don't retreat. You pause, you use your breath, your body, your awareness. And that pause? That's your superpower, because while others are spinning, you are choosing, and that choice makes you dangerously free. You owe the world your presence, not your peace. Your peace is yours. It is earned, tended to, protected by habits, reflection, solitude. Don't trade it cheaply. You can show up, you can care, you can love deeply, but you no longer betray yourself to keep others comfortable. You don't dim to keep peace. You stand in your full light and let others adjust their eyes. That is service. That is sovereignty. You don't need to explain. The new you, they'll ask, what happened to you? You've changed. Why so distant? Let them ask. You are no longer in the business of explaining your evolution. Growth isn't always visible, but its effects are undeniable. You don't respond the same. You don't engage in every invitation to conflict. You don't mirror back dysfunction. You've become your own reference point. And that stillness, that groundedness, it's loud, without saying a word. Not every room deserves the version of you that healed. Protect your light. Preserve your progress. Just because you healed doesn't mean you need to walk back into every room you once cried in. Your growth doesn't need to prove itself. It needs to be honored. Some rooms are meant to be left quietly. Some conversations are meant to remain unfinished because your peace isn't closure, it's departure. And leaving with grace is a statement no argument can match. You don't have to carry the past into every moment. You're not the walking history of your trauma. You're not a resume of your suffering. You're a living, breathing being capable of creating something new. Each interaction, each choice, each relationship can be clean, but only if you stop dragging yesterday into it. Your healing wasn't just for your past. It was for your freedom from it. So give yourself permission to be new, right here, right now. Kindness is not compliance. It's clarity. You are kind, but you are no longer soft in the wrong places. You are open, but no longer unguarded. You've learned that compassion without clarity is self-erasure, and now, your kindness comes with direction, with discernment, with backbone. You don't raise your voice, you raise your standard. And that shift, that's not attitude, that's alignment. This is who you are now. Not because you arrived, not because you perfected, but because you kept returning to truth, to self, to breath, again and again and again, until it became instinct, until you no longer had to remind yourself. You just were. And that version of you, the one who doesn't react out of pain, but responds from peace, that's the one the world's been waiting for. And now, you're here. The end of seeking, the beginning of being. You've searched for answers, for healing, for closure, for that one moment when everything would finally click and you'd be whole. But here's the truth. You were never missing. You were never broken. You were just distracted by noise, by wounds, by stories that were never yours. And now, for the first time, you stop seeking, not because you've given up, but because you've finally come home. Peace isn't something you find. It's something you uncover. It was always there, beneath the noise, beneath the reaction, beneath the protective armor you wore for so long you forgot it wasn't skin. Peace is not an achievement. It's a return to stillness, to presence, to the quiet knowing. I am okay, even when it's not. The Stoics never promised comfort. They promised freedom, and peace is the side effect of no longer needing life to cooperate. You no longer need to fix everything. You just need to stay with it. Most pain becomes unbearable, not because it's big, but because it's unattended. We panic. We want it gone. We rush the process. But now you know. You don't need to fix every emotion. You just need to stay present with it. Like a steady hand on a trembling shoulder, you meet your sadness. Not with solutions, but with presence. That presence heals more than 1,000 affirmations. Healing doesn't mean you feel good. It means you feel everything and still breathe. Still stay. Still speak slowly when your body wants to shout. Still listen when your ego wants to win. Still soften when the world demands you harden. That's healing, not the absence of pain, but the ability to sit with it without becoming it. That's power. That's Stoic strength. You no longer need to be understood. You just need to be true. For years, you wanted to be heard, to be validated, to be seen in the exact light you knew you held inside. But now, you've outgrown that need. Not because you don't care, but because you finally realized your soul isn't up for debate. Your path doesn't require approval. You don't need the world to agree with your healing for it to be real. You're not here to be understood. You're here to be aligned. Let it be simple. Now no more analysis. No more spirals. No more dissecting. Every emotion like it holds the key to enlightenment. Let it be simple. You feel it. You breathe. You stay or you walk. You speak or you stay silent. But whatever you do it honestly. No masks, no performances, no internal negotiations. Just quiet, clear, grounded truth. And that is liberation. The work is done. When you realize there was nothing wrong with you, let that settle. You were never too sensitive, too quiet, too emotional, too much. You were just living in environments that didn't know how to hold your depth. So you held it alone and called it flaw. But now that you don't carry that weight anymore, you've made peace with your nature. You've stopped shrinking your light to be understood. You've stopped asking, what's wrong with me? And started living from, this is who I am. And I'm finally at peace with that. You don't owe the world anything but your presence, not performance, not perfection. Not your old version, just your presence, honest, anchored, aware, because the world doesn't need more polished masks. It needs embodied people. People who show up with nothing to prove. People who live from the inside out. People who walk into chaos and don't lose themselves. And that is you now. You don't need to feel happy to be whole. You may feel sadness, loneliness, grief that still lingers. That's okay. Wholeness doesn't mean smiling all the time. It means not hiding anymore. It means letting joy and sorrow sit at the same table without shame. It means saying, yes, I feel pain. Yes, I feel peace. And yes, I can hold both without collapsing. That's emotional intelligence. That's depth. That's the sign that you've made it through. This is what living feels like now. Not chasing, not running, not fighting the past, just living. With breath, with softness, with strength that whispers, not shouts. You've stopped surviving. You've stopped fixing. And now, you exist. Fully. Freely. Finally. The quiet power of presence. You no longer chase the storm. You no longer run from it either. You simply stand in the center of your own stillness. This is not detachment. This is not apathy. This is equanimity. The calm that comes from knowing you can handle whatever comes because you've already faced yourself. You've stopped asking for permission to be whole. There was a time when you sought validation for your healing, your growth, your peace. But now, you own it. Not loudly, not defiantly, but with the quiet confidence of someone who no longer needs to prove their worth. You've realized that your existence is the only validation you need. You've learned to sit with discomfort. Without losing yourself, pain still visits. Doubt still whispers. But you no longer panic. You listen. You breathe. You stay. Because you've learned that discomfort is not the enemy. It's a teacher, a guide, a mirror. And in facing it, you find parts of yourself you never knew existed. You no longer seek to control. You choose to respond. Life is unpredictable, people are complex, situations are fluid. But you are steady, not because you control the external, but because you've mastered the internal. You've embraced the Stoic principle. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Inc.com. And in that realization, you found freedom. You've made peace with the past without letting it define you. The past is a chapter, not the whole story. You've read it. You've learned from it. But you no longer live in it. You carry its lessons, not its burdens. You honor its impact. But you don't let it dictate your future, because you've chosen to write your own narrative. One of resilience, growth, and authenticity. You've embraced the present as the only reality. The future is uncertain. The past is unchangeable. But the present? It's all you have, and you've decided to live in it fully, to feel deeply, to act intentionally, to love openly. Because you understand that life is not a destination, but a series of moments. Each one an opportunity to be fully alive. You've found strength in vulnerability. You no longer see vulnerability as weakness. You see it as courage, as authenticity, as connection. You've learned that opening your heart doesn't guarantee safety, but it does guarantee truth. And in that truth, you've found a strength that no armor could ever provide. You've stopped resisting what is acceptance. Is not resignation. It's recognition. Recognition that some things are beyond your control, and in accepting that, you've freed yourself from the chains of resistance. You've embraced the Stoic wisdom. If you wish to have peace and contentment, release your attachment to all things outside your control. Read it, and in releasing, you've found peace. You've chosen to live with intention every action, every word, every thought. You approach them with awareness, with purpose, with clarity, because you understand that a meaningful life is not built on grand gestures but on intentional moments, and you've committed to making each moment count. You've become the anchor in your own life. Storms may come, winds may howl, but you remain grounded, not because the world has changed, but because you have. You've become your own anchor, steady, resilient, unshakable. And in anchoring yourself, you've become a beacon for others seeking their own stability. You've realized that being is enough. You don't need to do more, achieve more, be more. You are enough, as you are, in your stillness, in your presence, in your being. And in embracing that, you've found the ultimate freedom, the art of simply being. You've reached the place beyond striving, beyond proving, beyond surviving. This isn't numbness. It's aliveness, without effort. It's where the breath is enough, where the silence is not empty, but full. This is the art of simply being. No narrative, no defense, no explanation, just presence, just life, as it is, and you, as you truly are. You're no longer chasing peace. You are peace. You used to chase calm like a destination. Now it follows you, like a shadow. Not because the world got easier, but because you stopped demanding it to. The Stoics never promised a world without pain. They promised that you could become the kind of person who doesn't collapse when the winds rise. That's who you are now. You don't hold peace. You generate it. With your breath, with your tone, with your way of walking through the world. Life doesn't feel like a fight anymore because you're no longer fighting yourself, no longer resisting emotions, no longer clinging to how things should have been. You've dropped the weapons, the inner conflict, the constant rehearsal of pain, and what replaced it, not perfection, not certainty, but ease. Not the ease of no problems, but the ease of no self-sabotage. You no longer need to be more. You just need to be here. You were taught that growth means becoming more productive, more impressive, more attractive, more healed. But now you see, growth means becoming less attached, less reactive, less dependent, less entangled in false identities. Now, presence is enough. A single moment, unfully lived, is worth more than years spent chasing approval. And in that shift, you begin to live differently, not louder, but truer. You speak less, but mean. More. You've let go of the need to explain, to convince, to be understood. Because now, your words come from depth, not defense. Your silence isn't avoidance, it's anchored. People listen differently now, not because you're loud, but because you're clear. And clarity commands attention without demanding it. You make decisions from the inside out. You don't ask, what will they think? You ask, what aligns with who I've become? That's power. Not control over others, but control over the compass inside you. No longer moved by trends, by pressure, by fear of missing out. You're not frozen. You're focused. You don't react. You respond from purpose. And that is mastery. You are comfortable with the unknown because you've stopped needing guarantees. You don't need every outcome planned. You don't need closure for every open loop. You simply live now. You trust that what's meant for you won't miss you, and what's not won't hold you. The Stoics called this amor fati, a love for fate, not passivity, but profound acceptance. And that acceptance has freed you from the tight grip of fear. Your presence becomes a healing force for others. You don't try to fix them. You don't try to teach them, you simply are. Grounded, available, true, and in that stillness they find space to soften, to breathe, to remember who they were before the noise. Your presence says what words can't. You're safe to be real, here, because you've done the work. Your energy now does the work for you. You don't need a purpose. You are the purpose. You don't need grand visions to validate your existence. You don't need to be useful every hour of the day. You don't need to leave a legacy to justify your breath. Your existence is enough. Your awareness is sacred. The fact that you can notice this moment fully, without trying to fix or flee it, is divinity in motion. That is purpose. Not to chase, but to embody. This is the life you were meant to live. Not a life without pain, but a life without unnecessary suffering. Not a life of constant success, but a life of deep integration, where joy feels honest, where sadness feels safe, where love isn't clinging, but opening. This is not the end of the journey. This is where the real living begins. The influence of a centered soul. You no longer try to lead with control. You lead with energy, with stillness, with the kind of presence that shifts the air in the room, without saying a word. You've become the kind of person others lean toward, not because you're loud, but because you're rooted, not because you convince, but because you embody. This is the influence of a centered soul. No manipulation, no demand, no pressure, just truth in motion. You radiate calm in a world that profits from panic. Everything around you moves fast, louder, more reactive, more addicted to immediacy. But you've slowed down. Not because you lack ambition, but because you've redefined it. Ambition now means depth, not volume. It means clarity, not clutter. It means doing fewer things better and letting the rest fall away. That alone makes you rare. In a world that glorifies noise, you've become a quiet force. You've become immune to the pull of provocation, not because you've numbed yourself, but because you've trained yourself to pause, to breathe, to see through it. Now, when insult comes, you don't absorb it. When tension rises, you don't match it. When others try to pull you into the storm, you become the eye. And in that stillness, you break the chain. Not just for yourself, but for everyone watching, because someone has to stop the cycle. And now, that someone is you. You listen without needing to fix. You no longer fear silence. You let others speak. You let the space be what it is, unfilled, unforced. You've realized most people don't need solutions. They need presence. Someone to witness them without shrinking, without judging, without making it about you. This kind of listening is rare. It heals what advice never could because it says, I'm not here to change you. I'm here to hold space for you to remember who you are. Your relationships shift, not because you ask, but because you change you. No longer beg for reciprocity. You become it. You no longer chase emotional maturity. You model it. And in doing so, you shift the standard. Some people will rise to meet it. Some will fall away. Both are sacred, because you've stopped trying to keep people. You now attract what aligns and release what doesn't, without resentment. That's not cold. That's clear. You respond to life. You don't react to it, every message, every challenge, every moment. You meet it with discernment. You ask, Is this mine to carry? Is this aligned with my values? Does this require action or awareness? And sometimes the most powerful answer is stillness, a breath, a slow walk, a kind no, a silent yes. This is Stoicism in motion. Not resistance, not indifference, but calm intelligence. You move with intention, not impulse. No more flinching, no more emotional autopilot. Every movement now flows from a deep, inner yes. You've rewired yourself to wait, to sense, to listen, not just to others, but to yourself. You no longer explain every decision. You no longer perform. You act from essence, and people feel that. Even when they can't name it, they feel your congruence, your coherence, your realness, and they trust it, because it's rare. You are no longer a mirror, you are a compass. Most people reflect what surrounds them. You don't. You guide. Not with commands, but with being. You've stopped matching energy. You set the tone. And because you've done the inner work, your external world begins to shift, slowly, subtly, inevitably. Because when one person raises their vibration quietly, it gives others permission to do the same. That's not influence, that's leadership. You've become a sanctuary for others because you've built one. Within, people feel safe around you, not because you say all the right things, but because you're safe with yourself. You don't betray your intuition. You don't abandon your needs. You don't override your wisdom. You stay. And that staying creates a resonance, a signal. It's okay to exhale here. And in a world gasping for air, that is everything. You no longer chase legacy, you live it. Daily, you don't need to build an empire. You are the work. Every breath, every boundary, every conscious word and silent restraint is part of the mark you leave behind. Legacy is not one grand gesture. It's 1,000 small ones, done with intention, done from presence. And the life you live now is no longer a rehearsal. It's the real thing. This is the life after the fire. You've walked through it, not around it, not above it. Through it, the silence, the shame, the stories, the sorrow. And now, you emerge, not untouched, but unchained. The fire didn't consume you, it clarified you. What remains is not who you were, but who you've always been beneath the noise. This is what it feels like to come home to yourself. No ceremony, no spotlight, no grand revelation, just a quiet, grounded knowing. I'm back. Back in your body, back in your breath, back in your values, back in the life that was waiting for you when you stopped running. The healing wasn't about changing who you are. It was about remembering it. And now, you remember. You no longer seek the path. You walk it. Each step is conscious. Each word is chosen. Each boundary is sacred. Each silence is intentional. Not because you've become someone else, but because you finally trust who you are. There's no need to explain, no need to perform, no need to be seen. You are the path now, and the way you live is your loudest truth. The world may still burn, but you've become the water. You don't fight chaos with more chaos. You don't match heat with more fire. You cool the room simply by walking in, because you've mastered your nervous system. You've tamed the wild animal of reactivity. You've stepped outside the game, and now you hold space for the ones still flinching, still spinning, still looking for themselves in all the wrong places. You don't try to fix them. You don't try to save them. You live as proof that another way exists. This is the freedom you were always searching for. Not the freedom to do anything, but the freedom to no longer need everything. To love without possession. To give without depletion. To walk away without revenge. To speak without fear. To sit in silence, and call it enough. This is the Stoics' freedom. Not loud, not viral, not sold in quotes and reels, but alive. Here, in this breath, in this moment, you are not. Better now, you are returned to clarity, to congruence, to choice, to the power of your own mind, the resilience of your own body, and the quiet force of your own soul. You no longer reach outside for permission. You simply wake, breathe, live, fully, softly, powerfully, without needing anything more than what already is. Let the past rest. It did its part. It revealed the cracks. It called you inward. It tested your spine. And you rose. So now, let it go. Not with bitterness, but with reverence. Thank it for the breaking. Thank it for the clarity. Thank it for showing you that peace was never out there. It was always within, waiting. You don't need the ending to be beautiful. You just need the present to be honest. Not every story wraps neatly. Not every goodbye makes sense. Not every question gets answered. But that's okay. Because you no longer live for closure. You live for truth. And truth isn't always tidy, but it's clean. And that cleanliness of soul, that untangled, unburdened way of living, that's worth more than any fantasy ending. This is your invitation to stay here, in presence, in rhythm, in alignment. You don't need to keep seeking. You don't need to perform. You've already arrived, not at perfection, not at bliss, but at readiness to live, to love, to serve, to speak, to be, fully and finally. This is the life after the fire.